Page 21. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hyuga Takuma threw 2 shurikens, hitting the bullseye, though not in perfect order. The teacher nodded in approval. Hyuga Takuma's got talent. Chiyu, unable to stand the taunting, instantly stepped up to throw. His movements were smooth and textbook perfect. Ding, ding, bullseye again. Wow, Uchiha's not half bad either. Someone exclaimed. Beginner's luck. I've never seen him this good before. Just watch, someone else said. Saitama, not wanting to let Hinata Takuma hog the spotlight, went next. He pulled out 5 shurikens from his ninja pouch and let them fly, instantly hitting all bullseyes. Hyuga Takuma's face paled. 5 shurikens, all at once. He couldn't do that. And 3 of the targets were moving. Hyuga Takuma knew he had to nail those 3 moving targets first, then worry about the rest. He pulled out 3 shurikens, rubbed them in his hands, aimed carefully, and prepared to throw. Ding, star. Ding, star. Ding, star. Ding, star. Suddenly, silence fell. Hyuga Takuma looked around, puzzled. The students were stunned by Saitama's last throw. Even the teacher looked surprised. While Hinata Takuma was lining up his shot on the moving targets, Saitama threw 3 more shurikens, not all at once this time, but one right after the other. That part wasn't the most surprising. After all, it wasn't that difficult to do. It was that Saitama's shurikens collided in midair, one after the other, finally sticking into the targets. 2 moving targets at 15 meters and 1 at 20. Hinata Takuma lowered his hand holding the shurikens, still gripping them tightly. He finally understood what Uchiha Saitama had meant earlier. Don't cry for a while. A wave of shame washed over him. Saitama turned and left without a second glance at Hinata Takuma. He now understood that only the strong get real respect. Time to put an end to hiding his strength so much. The crowd started whispering, surprised that the usually unremarkable Uchiha Saitama possessed such impressive throwing skills. The teacher shook his head, looking at the shurikens lodged in the target. There was no way he could pull off that one-handed throw. Just based on that one throw, Uchiha Saitama was better than him. He'd misjudged him. The Uchiha clan shouldn't be underestimated. Hyuga Takuma clenched his shuriken tightly, his small face filled with frustration. Ninja tools are just tricks. I'll beat you in a real fight. Uchiha Saitama, making up his mind, Hyuga Takuma put the shuriken back into his pouch, turned, and walked away. Kitama, Chiyu. I didn't know you were so amazing. Irika, beaming, approached Saitama. Chiyu being this good meant he could ask him for advice anytime. With enough practice, maybe he could become just as skilled. Not bad. You want to learn? I'll teach you. Saitama, in high spirits, said with a smile. This incident taught Chiyu that hiding his talent only invites others to look down on him. A little flexing is the way to earn the respect he deserved. Saitama didn't pay much attention to the rest of the test. The best score anyone achieved was only 8 points, and no one could hit all of the last few moving targets. This made the whole class look at Saitama in a new light. He not only hit all the targets, but he did it with some seriously impressive skill on the most difficult ones. Page 22. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The last class of the day covered the 3-body technique. Saitama had already mastered these basic ninjutsu a month ago. After demonstrating it perfectly for the teacher, Saitama retreated to his usual spot in the back row to continue his training. Even with Irika constantly buzzing in his ear, surprised by his progress, Saitama realized he was quickly surpassing his classmates. Maybe only Shisui could keep up. He wondered where Shisui had disappeared to during his absence. He hadn't seen him around the Uchiha compound. The first semester was almost over. Time was flying. Chapter 9 Chakra Attributes. Hey, can I get a chakra paper? That'll be 100 taels, please. Saitama took the chakra attribute test strip from the shopkeeper and carefully tucked it into his pocket. In class today, it hit him that despite all his training, he hadn't checked his innate attributes. With that thought, Saitama headed straight for the weapons shop where he bought supplies before. Most weapons shops carried chakra attribute test strips. They weren't exactly rare treasures. After paying and pocketing the test strips, Saitama turned to leave. Soon, Saitama was in the woods where he usually trained. His daily workouts had left obvious signs, but he wasn't planning on finding a new spot. If people saw, they saw. He didn't need to hide too much. That would just make people suspicious. Finding a clear patch, Saitama sat down cross-legged. He pulled out the test strips, thought for a moment about how to use them, then held them, slowly channeling his chakra into the paper. One corner of the test paper caught fire first, then another corner began to crinkle, and finally, the middle showed signs of being cut. So, he was wind, fire, and lightning. Since this type of test paper couldn't detect his Een attribute, he was currently wind, fire, lightning, and hidden Een. Not bad for a standard Uchiha attribute, Saitama thought, feeling pleased. He crushed the chakra test paper in his hand and buried it in the soil. Before long, microorganisms would decompose the paper, leaving no trace. Getting up to leave, Saitama headed home for dinner. Granny Xiang should have his meal ready and waiting. Testing his chakra attributes had only taken an extra half hour, which wasn't too long. He'd be back in time. As he approached his house, Saitama sensed something was off about the atmosphere. His heart tightened, and he hurried through the gate. Xiao Qiyu, you're back. Grandma Xiang was standing safely in the yard, and Saitama sighed in relief. Seeing the extra figures in the yard, Qiyu waited for an explanation. Kitama, these are guards from the clan. They said they need to talk to you. Understood, Granny. Go inside and rest, I'll handle it. Oh, okay. Uchiha Xiang knew she wouldn't be much help. Watching Granny Xiang go inside, Saitama nodded to the two guards in the yard, gesturing to a stool. The two men eyed Saitama with interest. A typical black-clad Uchiha in a high-necked suit, they looked pretty young, in their 20s. Saitama returned their scrutiny. Are you Uchiha Saitama? One of them spoke, breaking the silence. Yes, sir. Saitama kept his posture respectful. After all, he was just a student at the ninja academy. Shisui mentioned you. What did he say? He said you were very talented. Saitama smiled, looking at the man who spoke. Sir, you should know my performance in school. Would you call that talent? Chiyu knew they must have investigated him before coming. He decided to play along. Page 23. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Wow, that shuriken throwing technique is seriously impressive. Didn't think word would get around so fast. Saitama's expression turned serious as he looked the man in the eye. Shisui told us how talented you are, but we needed to see it for ourselves. What happened today convinced us to approach you. So, what can I do for you? Saitama was puzzled. The man gestured to himself and the other silent man. We're Uchiha guards, serving the Uchiha clan. I see. The man emphasized their allegiance to the Uchiha, not Konoha. Saitama immediately understood. So, the Uchiha are already making moves. Are things really that tense? A flicker of doubt crossed Saitama's face. Shisui is one of our top prospects. Saitama nodded, understanding their angle. You know why we're here. Join us. For the Uchiha. The man stood, his eyes burning with conviction. After all this, I still don't know your name. Saitama paused. Saitama didn't immediately agree. I'm Uchiha-sen, and this is my teammate, Uchiha Lin. The man introduced himself and his companion, perhaps realizing he'd been too blunt. Uchiha-sen smiled. Joining us isn't just about the clan. It's a huge boost to your own power. At the academy, you don't have professional ninjas guiding your training. Uchiha-sen grinned, confident this would sway Saitama. They'd thoroughly vetted Saitama before coming. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment thing. They knew Saitama was driven, often practicing alone in the woods. Of course, Shisui had provided the initial leads, and they'd confirmed everything with their own investigation. I'd be honored to serve the family. Saitama wasn't being fake. He'd always intended to align himself with the clan as an Uchiha. He couldn't imagine going against his own family, like Shisui and Itachi in the story, becoming some lone wolf. That would be self-defeating and wouldn't get him anywhere. Of course, it was still too early to tell. Uchiha-sen's eyes lit up. Welcome aboard. Uchiha-Lin smiled too. These Uchiha guards were fiercely loyal to their own clan. Saitama, with your current skills, could you graduate early? Uchiha-sen asked, sounding hesitant. While Saitama's ninja talent was undeniable, they were still uncertain about his overall strength. They'd never seen him truly cut loose. If the guard needs me to join ASAP, I can apply to graduate next semester. Saitama dropped the pretense and answered directly. Perfect. Shirsu is applying to graduate next semester too. You guys can apply together. Okay. Saitama wasn't playing coy. The promise of expert guidance was reason enough for him to join the guard. Saitama was already fed up with the slow progress of his current training, plus, now that he'd awakened his Sharingan, he desperately needed someone to mentor him. Talent alone isn't enough. Without guidance, even the best talent goes to waste. Well, that's all for today. We look forward to seeing you in the guard soon. Uchiha-sen and Uchiha-Lin stood and headed for the door. Page 24. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Okay, guess that wraps it up for today. Hope to see you at the guard station soon. Chiyu walked them to the door, watching them leave. Finally some good news. I actually have a shot at joining the guard. Closing the door, Saitama replayed the day in his mind. This changes everything. He'd figured on a slow burn, graduating ninja school in his second year, then hooking up with a top-notch jonin for some serious training, and maybe making a splash in the third war. But Uchiha headhunting him directly. Sounds like they want to groom me for some black ops as their personal muscle. Saitama was actually pretty stoked about it. He was already planning on siding with Uchiha anyway, so now he's just cutting to the chase. Creek, Granny Xiang's door swung open. Uchiha Xiang stepped out, spotting Saitama in the yard. Chiyu, honey, I know you've always been a smart kid, making your own decisions. The family wants you, and I'm not gonna interfere. Just don't do anything you'll regret, okay? Granny Xiang smiled, like she was talking about the weather. I know, Grandma. Don't worry. Saitama was brimming with confidence. No regrets here. A grown-up takes responsibility for their actions. Plain and simple, he had the self-assurance to back it up, and he wasn't about to let anyone down. Alright, I'll stop nagging. What's for dinner? We have some leftover chicken. I'll grab some veggies, we can throw something together. Sounds good, Granny Xiang. Chiyu wasn't picky. He trusted Grandma Xiang's cooking. Besides, he needed time to process everything that went down. Later, Saitama sat cross-legged on the tatami mat in his room. Next to him were the ninjutsu scrolls his parents had left behind. Everyone thinks Sharingan when Uchiha comes to mind, but not everyone in the clan unlocks it, so for most folks, Uchiha means fire jutsu and shuriken throwing. Naturally, most of what Saitama inherited were fire techniques. 3 scrolls in total, 2 for fire jutsu. Saitama had already skimmed through them. One was the bread-and-butter fire style, Fireball Jutsu, and the other was Fire Style, Phoenix Sage Flower Claw Crimson, a C rank and B rank, respectively. The other scroll held a Genjutsu, illusionary technique, ephemeral. The Fireball Jutsu was about as basic as it gets. You pool chakra in your chest and blast a huge fireball from your mouth, sending your target flying. Phoenix Sage Flower Claw Crimson was a souped-up version of the Phoenix Sage Flower technique. Like touch-me-nots, the flame seeds scatter and burst in all directions to strike the enemy. And they're all chakra-controlled, so dodging them all is a real pain. It's flashy, and it packs a punch. Phoenix Sage Flower Claw Crimson basically slaps flames onto flying shuriken, turning them into fiery death blossoms. It's like the original, but with extra oomph. Ephemeral was also a pretty nasty genjutsu. You know you're caught in it, but you can't move. It's like sleep paralysis. It's similar to Jiraiya's Sage Art, Toad's Song, but the binding power is definitely weaker. Memorizing the jutsu, Saitama wondered about his parents' backstory. These were powerful jutsu, especially the latter two. It's a wonder they just left them here and the family didn't try to reclaim them. Setting the scrolls down, Saitama flopped onto the tatami, staring blankly at the ceiling. Okay, I've made my choice. If I can't get behind what the third Hokage and Danzo are doing, then it's full speed ahead with Uchiha. Time to play my own game. Chapter 10, Uchiha. Saitama didn't feel any connection to Konoha. Since he'd landed in this world, the Uchihas were the ones he'd interacted with the most, and they weren't half bad. Sure, some were as arrogant as the story said, looking down their noses at anyone who wasn't Uchiha, but whatever. Page 25. You are listening at novelfull.audio. But most folks, like Granny Xiang, are just decent people. Speaking of the Uchiha clan, Saitama still felt a pang of regret. Konoha village was founded by the first Hokage, Senju Hashirama, and Uchiha Madara. But who would have guessed that Konoha had always been controlled by the Senju family, leaving the Uchihas out in the cold? The Uchiha clan got stuck with being the police force, and that was it, and it didn't stop there. Even without any real power in Konoha, the Uchihas were constantly sidelined, totally excluded from the important meetings. When the first Hokage was around, the Uchiha situation was alright. After all, Senju Hashirama couldn't forget his old friend, Uchiha Madara, but with the second Hokage, Senju Fima, the Uchihas really hit rock bottom. Senju Fima always looked down on the Uchihas, and their conflict was nothing new. Before, Senju Hashirama kept him in check, but now, with his big brother gone, he went all out, targeting the Uchiha clan and pushing them completely out of Konoha's decision-making circle. By the time the third Hokage took over, the new leaders who inherited the second's way of thinking also shut the Uchihas out of Konoha's inner circle. Shimura Danzo really ramped things up, constantly targeting the Uchihas, treating them like a cancer in Konoha, itching to get rid of them. In that kind of political climate, it's no surprise the Uchihas didn't have warm feelings for Konoha, didn't feel that strong sense of belonging. Eventually, they were left with no choice but to launch a coup. When you're facing the music, you're facing the music. The Uchiha clan's pride wouldn't let them back down, leading to their tragic downfall and extinction. By deciding to join the Uchiha side, Saitama was going down a road with no turning back. It was do or die. One step forward could be heaven, but one step back was sure to be hell. The final exam rolled around, and Shisui was there. After months of intense training, Shisui had really matured. His whole vibe was different. Sayu. It had been a while since Saitama heard Shisui's voice, but he still knew who it was. You really sure about this? Shisui looked serious, which was kind of funny coming from a 6-year-old. Why so serious? Isn't this the way it's gotta be? Saitama chuckled. The two of them stood at the entrance to the ninja academy, looking at each other. People flowed around them like water around a rock. Shisui in the previous life was devoted to Konoha. I wonder if it is still the case now. Sayu stared at the still immature Shisui, and saw a trace of complexity in his eyes. Let's head back. Saitama pursed his lips, dropping the subject. They walked back to the Uchiha compound, side by side. The setting sun cast long shadows behind them as they walked. Shisui, what do you think of our Uchihas these days? Great, Konoha big shots. Really? I'm gonna head in. Sayu walked towards the house, leaving Shisui standing there. Winter was coming, and the nights were getting longer, arriving earlier. After a quick dinner, Saitama grabbed his ninja tools and headed to the training ground he knew so well. Holding a handful of shurikens, Saitama started practicing his throwing skills on a big tree that took several people to wrap their arms around. He was waiting for someone, warming up first. Didn't expect you to be here so early. Soon after, Shisui appeared from the other side of the woods. Saitama threw the last shuriken and shook his hand, looking towards the voice. Saitama's eyes lit up. Let's see what you've been working on. That's what I was hoping for, Saitama. That the fight started out of nowhere, no build-up at all. Clang. Page 26. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The short knives clashed, spitting sparks. They locked eyes. A grin tugged at Saitama's lips, a forced smile. It's tough to keep a smile while gripping a knife tight. Saitama stepped back, leveling his blade at Shisui. Come on, Shisui. Saitama smirked. Watch out, Saitama. Shursui burst forward, his blade became a spear, aimed right at Saitama. Saitama focused, gripping his knife and rushing to meet him, eyes glued to Shursui, watching his every move. Saitama figured Shursui had a surprise up his sleeve after all this time. Just as they were about to collide, Shursui's eyes narrowed, and Saitama knew something was up. Sure enough, Shursui made a hand sign with his left hand. Asterisk whoosh, star, Shursui vanished. Behind me. Saitama swung his knife in a half circle, then reversed the motion, slashing upward. Asterisk clang, star. Shursui's eyes widened. Saitama had blocked him. The body flicker technique. Saitama grinned, surprised Shursui could use it already. Quick reflexes, Saitama. Shursui couldn't spam the teleport technique, his chakra limited him. Even though he blocked Shursui's sneak attack, the force knocked Saitama back several steps. Predicting the attack didn't give him enough time to brace, so Saitama's counter wasn't at full power. After flicking out a few thrown knives, Saitama shook his wrist. The impact had made his hand a little numb. The fight was getting him pumped. Fire style, fireball jutsu. Slamming his knife into the ground, Saitama made the hand seals instantly. A massive fireball erupted from his mouth. Intense heat washed through the woods, setting them ablaze. The fireball hurtled toward Shursui, who looked shocked. Asterisk whoosh, star. A tree branch exploded as the fireball slammed into it, instantly reduced to ash. I didn't expect you to learn fire-style ninjutsu. Shursui reappeared a short distance away, eyeing Saitama. He glanced at the still-burning flames, a chill running down his spine. Good thing he'd used the substitution technique. There are a lot of things you don't expect, Shursui. Saitama grinned, watching Shursui evade his attack. Alright, then I'll pull out all the stops. Shursui formed a hand seal, staring at Saitama. Asterisk poof, star. A shadow clone materialized beside Shursui. They nodded to each other and charged at Saitama together. Saitama yanked his dagger from the dirt, unfazed. Asterisk clang, star. Asterisk clang, star. Asterisk clang, asterisk. Page 27. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The three figures became a swirling blur, Shursui pressing Saitama in. Saitama's swordsmanship was similar to Shursui's, maybe even a bit weaker. Adding a shadow clone to the mix made it an uneven fight. Asterisk clang, star. Saitama blocked another of Shursui's attacks. Asterisk swing, star. Another Shursui moved to Saitama's left, slashing at his waist. Desperate, Saitama twisted, barely dodging, but his clothes still ripped. Whoa! Saitama kicked to his left, connecting with Shursui's kick, and the figures separated. So, what do you think, Saitama? It's kinda fun, but if that's all you got, I think I got this. With that, Saitama closed his eyes. If the fight continued like this, Saitama would leave himself open. He decided to use Sharingan. A flash of red appeared in Saitama's eyes. He looked up, focusing on the two Shizui standing side by side. What's your next move, Shursui? Saitama grinned, his eyes locked onto the two figures. Under his gaze, nothing would be hidden. Tutomo Sharingan. Shursui stared at the tomo in Saitama's eyes, a hint of surprise on his face. A 6-year-old wielding the Tutomo Sharingan was unheard of in the Uchiha clan. Even though Shursui hadn't seen all the Uchiha secrets, he knew Saitama possessed top-tier talent. Don't get cocky, Saitama. Shursui swung his blade, the two figures attacking Saitama at the same time. One Tomo Sharingan offers insight, while the two Tomo enhances spiritual power, boosting genjutsu. The 3 Tomo allows for copying. The 2 Tomo Sharingan naturally enhanced Saitama's dynamic vision. Details he'd missed before were now crystal clear. Instantly, Saitama predicted the trajectory of Shursui's attacks. Asterisk clang, star. Saitama blocked Shursui's frontal assault, then spun and kicked backward. The air cracked as Saitama put everything he had into the kick. Asterisk poof, star. A puff of white smoke. The Shursui behind him was clearly a clone, pulverized by Saitama's kick. Clang! Saitama sensed Shursui's movement and slashed, colliding with him. His scarlet eyes glared at Shursui. The two traded blows, then staggered back. What's up, Shursui? Saitama smirked, taunting Shisui with his eyes. The fight's not over, Shisui stared back. His movements were exposed under Saitama's gaze, and his swordsmanship couldn't give him an advantage. The body flicker technique ate up too much chakra. He could only use it twice, max. If that didn't work, he'd have to throw in the towel. Shisui grimaced at the thought. After all this training, he still couldn't beat Saitama. Firming his resolve, Shisui narrowed his eyes. Saitama struck first, hitting Shisui with a preemptive strike. Fire style, fireball jutsu, that with his massive chakra reserves, he didn't need to worry about consumption. This was where his chakra advantage came into play. Shisui paused, and dodged to the side. Saitama's chakra reserves were greater than expected. Page 28. You are listening at novelfull.audio. With the Sharingan activated, Saitama kept firing off fire-style jutsu without even breaking a sweat. Shisui's face tightened, knowing this fight just got a whole lot tougher. He charged straight at Saitama, his eyes locked on his opponent. Saitama knew Shisui could easily dodge a simple fireball like that. It was too telegraphed. Seeing Shisui rush him, Saitama met him head-on with the Sharingan. Saitama could definitely hold his own in close combat. That inside eye wasn't just for show, and the difference in their swordsmanship wasn't that wide. Saitama swung at Shisui's neck, but Shisui dodged to the side. What he didn't expect was that Saitama was already predicting his moves from the slightest twitch. Saitama yanked back his blade and kicked Shisui. Oof! That the kick sent Shisui's kunai flying. Thunk. The kunai stuck into a piece of deadwood. Saitama grinned, glancing sideways at Shisui. Keep it coming. Saitama swung his blade again, clashing with Shisui's remaining kunai. Clang! 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 Disarmed, Shisui was like a tiger without its claws. His offensive power plummeted, sparks flew as Shisui was forced to retreat. The momentum was shifting in Saitama's favor. Another desperate strike, and Shisui was pushed back even further, clutching his kunai across his chest. Shisui panted, feeling the drain of the battle. His kunai was much shorter than Saitama's blade, forcing him to exert more force to meet each blow. Plus, Saitama's stamina was insane. He was using the Sharingan and fighting like crazy, and Shisui hadn't even seen him take a deep breath. Dropping his hands, Shisui smiled. All right, I give. Shisui looked defeated. He was convinced he'd lost, especially since Saitama was using the Sharingan. Looking at the redness in Saitama's eyes, Shisui felt a twinge of envy. The Sharingan was a huge asset in taijutsu. If he had it, he might have stood a chance. Maybe this was the talent Saitama was always talking about. You're strong too, Shisui. Without the Sharingan, I wouldn't be able to beat you. Saitama was thinking about how Shisui's swordsmanship seemed to get fiercer the longer he fought. He was using some tricky angles that Saitama might have missed without the Sharingan's enhanced perception. The Sharingan is just part of being a ninja. I really lost this time, Shisui said seriously, walking over to retrieve his kunai. When did Saitama awaken her Sharingan? Shisui was curious. Saitama hadn't had the Sharingan during their last fight, but now he suddenly had the double tomo. That's not how it's supposed to work for Uchiha. It happened shortly after our last battle. I unlocked the double tomo right away. Maybe it's my special talent, Saitama replied casually, looking Shisui directly in the eye with a smile. Shisui chose to ignore Saitama's attempt to mess with him. He'd underestimated Saitama's talent. If the clan knew Saitama had awakened the Sharingan at this age, and as a double tomo no less, they'd freak out. Shisui was already imagining the looks on their faces, especially that bunch of Uchiha guards who thought they were all geniuses. A smirk crept across Shisui's face. He really wanted to get Saitama to graduate early and join the guard team. Let's head back. It's getting late. Saitama cleaned up the traces of their fight, covering the scorch marks from the fire style with dirt. In winter, the sky was completely dark by now, and the temperature had dropped. While neither of them was bothered by the cold, they both had plenty to think about after the fight, and there was no point in sticking around and freezing, crunching over dead leaves and branches. They left the forest that belonged exclusively to the Uchiha clan, the lights of the clan compound. shone brightly in the distance. Page 29. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 11 Graduation. Saitama's fight with Shisui revealed several shortcomings in his abilities. His fighting style was too simple, lacking any particular strength to overcome Shisui. He barely managed to win thanks only to the advantage of his Sharingan. In just a few days, it would be the new year, and it was snowing in Konoha. Large, fluffy snowflakes fell from the sky. It hadn't snowed in Konoha for years, at least not in Saitama's memory. Lucky snow brings a good year, as the saying goes in Konoha. Despite the snow, Konoha's enthusiasm for welcoming the new year remained strong. Although the streets were covered in a thick layer of snow, vendors and pedestrians bustled about. Saitama strolled leisurely through the snowy streets, taking a break for once. He decided to treat himself. "Dad, look at the masks over there," a young voice called out. Saitama turned to see a familiar adult man, Uchiha Fugaku, the current head of the Uchiha clan. The child was obviously Uchiha Itachi. It was the end of Konoha year 44. Itachi, born in year 43, was just over a year old, nearly 2. Saitama stopped a short distance away. He wanted to observe the father and son. He saw Fugaku pick up a mask and say to Itachi, "If you want one, Itachi, we can buy it." Uchiha Fugaku smiled kindly. Itachi nodded, walked to the stall, and picked one out. Taking the opportunity, Uchiha Fugaku glanced at Saitama. His eyes focused on the Uchiha crest on Saitama's clothing, and he stared curiously. Saitama, noticing the Uchiha patriarch's gaze, simply lowered his head in respect and then turned away. The father and son seemed closer than he remembered. The snow continued to fall, blanketing all of Konoha in white. Soon, Saitama arrived at a barbecue restaurant. It had been a while since he'd had barbecue, and he was craving it. Taking advantage of his free time, he visited a restaurant he often thought about. Eating alone could be nice. Saitama wasn't lonely. He was content enough to enjoy anything, even by himself. He skillfully ordered some side dishes and then asked for 2 pounds of meat to start. He was growing, and he couldn't skimp on food. Otherwise, he'd end up short. Being called a dwarf wouldn't be fun. At 6 years old, Saitama was only about a meter tall, perhaps a little over. He wasn't short compared to others his age. Shisui was similar in height, but much thinner. The restaurant served generous portions of delicious food at reasonable prices. Saitama chose a corner seat, a clean spot where he could eat undisturbed. He placed slices of white meat on the grill, and they sizzled as the oil dripped. Saitama grinned. This was the perfect life, no worries about food or clothes. If only there wasn't so much pressure, but that's life, right? No pressure, no motivation. As the meat slowly turned golden brown, Saitama sprinkled spices on it. The spices released an even richer aroma in the heat. After enjoying his meal, Saitama didn't let himself get too comfortable. He planned to apply for the graduation exam at the start of the next semester. Although confident, he still needed to prepare. He took some grilled meat back to Granny Xiang and then headed to the woods with his ninja tools. The treetops were covered in snow, and the air was frigid, but this wouldn't deter Saitama's training. The climate itself was good training. He practiced kunai throwing, shuriken, swordsmanship, ninjutsu, taijutsu, and genjutsu. One by one, in the cold chakra flowed through him, giving him seemingly endless energy and stamina. Page 30. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Under these conditions, Saitama relentlessly pushed himself. An unwavering desire for strength fueled his constant self-discipline. Life's tough, and without power, that toughness shines through, forcing you to confront a bleak reality. Saitama couldn't afford to slack off for a second. Activating Sharingan, Point 2 Tomo appeared in his eyes. Saitama grabbed a handful of shuriken and charged towards a large tree, running straight up its branches. This technique used chakra to stick him to the tree, defying gravity. It was something Saitama had been working on lately. Kicking off the upper part of the trunk, Saitama launched himself outward, head down. He plummeted towards the ground like an upside-down top. In mid-air, Saitama flung the shuriken in his hand, the air whistling as they flew. After throwing 4, he didn't stop, reaching into his ninja pouch again. more shuriken appeared between his fingers, his scarlet eyes scanned his surroundings, and Saitama threw again, clang, 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 that the sound of metal on metal echoed as Saitama closed his eyes, twisting his body as he landed, sticking the landing on both feet. Yes, the shuriken hit the targets he'd placed around the training area in quick succession. Opening his eyes, Saitama's pupils returned to normal, the black and white distinct. He didn't need to look, he knew he'd nailed every shot. Saitama's shuriken throwing had reached a whole new level, his skills honed to perfection. Dusting himself off, Saitama gathered his ninja tools. Today's training was just about done. So, you two are here to apply for early graduation? The ninja school principal, now balding, felt like he was in a dream. When did the world get so full of prodigies? He eyed the two Uchiha boys standing in his office with suspicion. Was he really that out of touch, that he didn't even recognize their talent? Once he was sure the students weren't pulling his leg, the principal knew he had to go to his superiors. I need to get approval for this. Head back to class for now, and I'll let you know as soon as I have an answer. Okay. That with a diplomatic smile, the principal dismissed Saitama and Shursui. Thank you, sir. Shursui was very polite, and Saitama nodded in agreement. Saitama, Shursui, where were you two? Irika looked at the two who had mysteriously left class right after it started. Saitama decided to let his new friend in on what was going on. Shursui and I just applied for early graduation, so we went to see the principal. What? Irika covered his mouth in disbelief, but then he relaxed a little. Well, you are from the big clans, after all. I guess it makes sense to graduate early. Irika's eyes were filled with a hint of sadness. Aside from his physical strength, he didn't have much ninja talent. Even with all the effort he put in, he was barely keeping up with the rest of the class. He'd always been a little envious of Saitama and Shursui's gifts, even if he didn't say it. Saitama patted Irika on the shoulder and returned to his seat with Shursui, saying nothing. Meanwhile, the principal knocked on the door of the Hokage's office. Oh. Kawashima, what is it? The third Hokage looked at the bald, middle-aged man with a puzzled expression. Ninja school had just started, so Kawashima shouldn't have any reason to be there. The school should be dealing with 100 different things right now. Setting down the document in front of him, the third Hokage picked up his pipe and took a puff, his gaze fixed on Kawashima. 2 kids from the Uchiha clan applied for the graduation exams today.